Well, hello everyone. It's an honor to be a part of the second annual Athlete Mental Health Week, and I'm excited to talk to you guys today about a topic that is so important and that is near and dear to my heart. But before I do that, let me tell you about my professional background in sport. So I'm a sports psychiatrist, which means I am board certified in psychiatry and I only see athletes, which I'm very proud of. And I do that through various roles. I'm the founding director of the Sports Mental Health and Performance Institute at Montefiore Einstein in New York. I'm a consultant to the commissioner of Major League Baseball on mental health and mental performance. I'm the team sports psychiatrist to New York City Football Club, or NYCFC, in Major League Soccer. And I'm also a mental performance coach at Sports Strata, which is a clinic for mental health and mental performance for athletes in New York City. And it's through these various roles that I've had the great pleasure of helping athletes at all levels, high school, collegiate, Olympic, and professional, at bettering their mental health and their mental performance. But that's my professional background in sport. My personal background in sport began much earlier than that. About 34 years ago, when I was 8 years old, and my mother and I immigrated from Costa Rica to New York City. This was after my mom divorced my father for infidelity and domestic abuse. And this was an exceptionally difficult time for me because I separated from my dad. We moved to a place where I had no family other than my mom. And even her, I barely saw her because she had to work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day just to make ends meet. I had no friends. I didn't speak English. I was bullied in school. And we settled in the South Bronx, which back in the early 90s was the poorest congressional district in the United States. So there was violence and poverty in my neighborhood and in my school. I was just so concerned about being safe at the end of the day that I completely neglected my grades. And I ended up in a charitable program for kids that are at a statistically high risk of becoming high school dropouts. And then on top of that, my mom remarried somebody that was even more abusive than my than her first husband. So in the midst of all of these challenges, sport was very important to me. Whether it was playing pickup basketball, football, baseball as a kid in the streets, or varsity sports in high school or as an NCAA athlete in college, sport was like a life buoy for me in troubled waters. It it gave me friends when I had none. It gave me safety when there were so many dangers around me. And it helped me with my self-esteem when I struggled with insecurities about fitting in, belonging, and being good enough. So, what is trauma? According to Merriam-Webster, it's a disordered psychic or behavioral state resulting from mental or emotional stress or physical injury. Another way to categorize trauma is that it comes with a capital T and with a little t. Capital T trauma is a life-threatening experience that you and I can experience directly or indirectly, and that, yes, includes awful things like physical and sexual abuse that unfortunately too often we hear about in the news happening to our athletes. It doesn't necessarily mean that your life was in danger, but it freaking felt like it. And here's a story that will help me illustrate this. And by the way, this is not a picture of him, and his name is not Billy. But Billy was a college baseball player, a shortstop that walked into my office about 3 years ago. And he came to me because he suddenly, inexplicably became unable to accurately throw the ball to first base anymore. If you're thinking of the yips, you're right. This is what that was. But my beef with the term the yips is that it sounds trivial, funny, humorous, and that is not what was happening here. Billy was hurting. Billy was suffering. His position on the team was in jeopardy. His scholarship was in danger. His future in the sport, which he loved, was becoming bleak. It was affecting his function on the field and off the field and his relationships. And this had been going on for a couple of months. And before he even came to me, he had tried those things that his coaches had told him to do. Just be tough, shake it off, suck it up, go roll around in the dirt, get dirty before the game so that you get the embarrassment out of the way. He even saw a throwing mechanics coach to help him with his throwing motion. None of these things helped him. If anything, it made things a little worse. So I start working with him. And of course, we do the traditional sports psychology things, breath work, visualization, routines, self talk. And these things helped a little bit, just a little bit. But it felt like there was a bigger iceberg under the water. And so we went there. And I'm about to summarize for you several therapy sessions over the course of a couple of minutes, but it went a little like this. So, Billy, what are you experiencing right before you make that throw to first base? Terror, panic. Gosh, Billy, that's really scary, man. What does that feel like physically? Um, like I'm freezing, I'm tightening, especially right here in my chest. That's awful, Billy. It's awful. I'm sorry. I'm curious, what's your oldest memory of feeling that way? If you let your memory just go back in time, like how tall were you the first time you felt like that? Well, I guess back in Little League when I was first learning the game, I was about 8. Um, and I remember feeling really scared to make that throw across the infield to first base for the first time. What were you afraid of? I was afraid that if I messed up the throw, I'd upset my teammates and my coach because I threw the game for them, and and that I disappoint my dad who was watching on the sideline cheering for me. Gosh, that's a lot of pressure for an 8-year-old, Billy. Yeah, yeah, sure was. Well, Billy, let's imagine that, this younger 8-year-old you with a funny haircut and a squeaky voice was right here in the room with us right now. And he was telling you, I'm scared. I'm scared to mess up this throw and upset my team and disappoint my dad. What would you tell him? Would you tell him to suck it up? Would you tell him to get over it, to go away? No, of course not. Well, what would you tell him? I'd say, hey, kid, I see you're scared, man. I get it, but it's just a throw. Your team will get over it. And your dad and mom will love you regardless of whether you make or break this throw. Billy, how do you think that would have landed had you heard that back then? Really well, actually. So, Billy, going forward, if this younger, scared version of you were to keep showing up for you at games, at practice, how do you want to respond to him from now on? Well, just like that, I guess, with with kindness, acknowledging him, um, connecting with him and reassuring him that I've got this, kid. I've made this throw a million times. And so that's exactly what we did. We then had subsequent sessions where we worked on building a daily practice of reconnecting with his younger self and even developing gratitude for his younger self. Because after all, that little kid that was showing up was just trying to protect him from failure, from something really scary. And sure enough, that little kid kept showing up. But each time it was less and less rattling to Billy, to the point that it didn't even rattle him anymore. It became a little bit humorous, actually, how this kid would show up on cue. And this story is powerful, partly because it wasn't the last time I saw it. It was also the story of Michael, the Division One lacrosse player who came to me after he could no longer keep the ball in his stick. When I met Joe, the high school basketball player, who was the best player on his team, and yet when it came to games, he just kept shying away from taking all those shots that he was expected to take. And Taylor, the talented MLS Academy player, who, despite his crazy talents, developed distressing knee shakes and heavy breathing and head noise whenever he got asked to sub into a game off the bench. And Alex, the college tennis player who developed sheer panic attacks in her matches. And me, a future physician who developed panic attacks whenever he had to give a talk or a presentation just like this one in high school, college, medical school, and residency. He's with me right now. We're doing okay, right? And I and my athletes can tell you all that it was through therapy that we were able to eventually heal some of these old, invisible, unseen wounds. And before that healing process started, it felt like we were just driving along on this familiar road, and all of a sudden, yank, somebody pulled that handbrake. So, who's pulling that handbrake? Who's in the passenger seat of your car? It's your memories, your lived experiences, your younger self who is in fear and reaching for that handbrake in a desperate attempt to find safety. So, as the driver of your car, in sport or in life, with your passengers on the passenger seat, what kind of driver do you want to be? A bad one? Who has that kid in their blind spot, not even aware of him? Or maybe you're aware of him there, but you're avoiding him? La 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 la. Or worse, you're yelling at him, arguing with him to the point that you're now distracted and not even looking at the road. Or would you rather be an ace driver? One who acknowledges that kid and the fear he's feeling and the things he must have gone through to have developed this fear, and who connects with him empathically, lovingly, to rebuild that trust with him so that you can then fully engage on the road in the things that matter to you in your game and in life.
Jorge,
And
my apologies. I hate to break your flow here, but I think for some of us the screen is frozen on the first slide. I just wanted to let you know. My apologies to break this up.
no worries. Thank you for letting me know, Sean. If it's okay with everyone, I'll just keep going then. Taking that first step towards becoming an ace driver, towards healing these old wounds, can be frightening. And it certainly requires courage. And so I'd like to share with you all my favorite quote on courage, which is over 2,000 years old. And it goes a little something like this: Being deeply loved by someone gives you strength, while loving someone deeply gives you courage. If you're a parent like I am, this quote probably hits close to home because when my kids tell me that they love me, I feel like Superman. But when it comes to providing them with the love that they need, you become Superman or Superwoman. And so I can't see you guys right now and you can't see my slides right now, and that's okay. I'd like to, if you're willing to take that first step right now, I'd like to invite you to do a brief 2-minute meditative exercise with me right now. And so if you're willing, I'm just going to invite you to go eyes closed with me. I'll do it with you. And just allow to come to mind somebody that you absolutely love like crazy. It makes no sense. It's not reasonable. And maybe over the years, this person has caught you looking at them with that look in your eye that says how much you love them. I wonder if you can imagine where this person is right now. What space are they inhabiting? What's their posture? Are they focused, smiling, or laughing right now? Can you notice their breath? Maybe you can see their chest or neck rising. And if so, I'd like to invite you to match your breath right here, right now, with their breath over there right now. And I'll do it with you. And I want you to do that for 6 breaths. I'm going to invite you to just let those images swirl around your head and come back eyes open with me. And so, from the strength of that connection with that person, are you more or less willing to do something hard? Are you more or less willing to take that step you haven't taken? And are you more or less willing to heal your invisible wounds? Thank you. I don't think we have a moderator for this talk, but um, I am available to stick around for as long as anyone wants if they have questions or would like to discuss anything. And my apologies for the slides not showing. Thank you, Caroline. That means a lot to me. My pleasure, Mina. My pleasure, Sean.
Thank you, Jorge. That was great. I'm not a fast typer, just an old guy with uh, that can relate. And certainly, it's always a challenge with um, athletes to get out of their head and, as I always say, stay more heart spaced.
Mm.
Where there's a center of passion and wisdom and courage, that all those good things, and try to stay away from the traps of um, you know the the possessions and the cars and the money and the status, and get to the things that really really make a difference. Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for sharing that. I couldn't agree more. I think, sadly, sometimes we have to go to a difficult rock bottom place to learn that what brings the most meaning and purpose in life are not the things we originally thought,
Mm.
and that maybe there were things that were already in our lives. And I think, Gary, you said something very important, which is that everyone in this chat, this Zoom and outside of it, shares this in common.
Jorge, thank you again. That was fantastic. I just have one question in relation to resources. Are there any books as it relates to trauma in sports that you would recommend for coaches or athletes to check out?
Ooh, ooh, that's a great question, Sean. I don't have a particular book in mind, especially because, you know, I I think that the most important thing that, say, a coach can do for a player that might have a visible or invisible wound is just have good mental health first aid tools, um, so that these sorts of things are validated and normalized for an athlete, so that then a professional can then help that athlete unpack these things and process these things in a healthy way. It's trauma is so deep and painful and complicated that that truly, if it can be done with an experienced professional, then that's what one should do.
Yeah, that's great advice and certainly aligned with our approach. My dad, who's my co-founder, we own a wellness and performance business. We got mental health first aid certified last spring, which was very helpful.
Oh, that's awesome, Sean. There's not enough of that going around. Well, if there are no more questions or comments, it's an honor for me to share my story and some of the other stories I've come across in life with you all. And if I can ever be of assistance to you, um, please please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Um, I think everyone here, I think we all belong to the same village, the village of helping people. Um, and so and so let's keep relying on one another, connecting with one another, and helping others find their road to a rich, meaningful life. Terrific.